back to Filter. I'm Yuna, the host formerly known as Diane Mizoda, and we're leveling up through the best of Final Fantasy. As our quest for the best ventures forward, the ultimate crusade of all time nears its finale. With so many remarkable games in the series to choose from, which one will reign triumphant and take the crown as the most popular Final Fantasy? Patience, fantasy fans. First, let's praise the victors so far. You gave Cloud the silver lining by voting him best male lead character. Aeris has been resurrected into the top spot as your favorite female lead. He's evil, evil! You summoned Sephiroth as the most devious boss baddie ever. And speaking of summons, you guys picked the Knights of the Round as the most spectacular summon attack of all time. Before we prepare for the final battle, we wanted to find out what the future holds for Final Fantasy. The series has been a huge hit with gamers, almost as long as it takes to breed a gold chocobo. But does this franchise have enough cure-all to keep it alive and kicking for years to come? We asked, and you told.
I think the future of the Final Fantasy games is somewhat like the present of the Final Fantasy games. They are going to continue to find ways to drive technology in video games. They will continue to be the best looking games.
It's going to look more like reality, more like you're watching a movie as you play it.
I think the series is just going to get more immersive, probably bigger.
Pushing the boundaries of what they've already set standards for, creating a more compelling story.
They found they can expand the storylines now with Final Fantasy X2. People like Final Fantasy X enough that they wanted to see more of it.
Improving gameplay, definitely. I'm sure they'll go somewhere around that.
Refining the battle system so maybe they offer something for the casual gamer to play, but also the guy who's the hardcore Final Fantasy nut.
I personally would like to see things like male leads who really do convey a sense of purpose.
I think we're going to see an online version of Final Fantasy along with a single-player Final Fantasy, and that series is just going to keep going and going and going.
The Final Fantasy experts have spoken, and from what we just saw, there are plenty of hardcore devotees to keep the gale rolling in. We charged you with the task of seeking out the fabled Final Fantasy. Out of so many games, each a treasure in and of itself, which one will prove its worth and wear the crown? The challengers have stepped forward and their blades have been sharpened. The tourney begins for the Sweetest Five, presented by Juicy Fruit.
Final Fantasy I really introduced a lot of people to role-play games in the first place. It introduced the idea of, walking around this big countryside and the whole storyline and the more turn-based battle sequences as opposed to, like, Legend of Zelda where you were fighting in real time.
For the time, it was really impressive because it had a really good story compared to other RPGs at the time, and you're also able to customize your party to extents which were never seen before.
Final Fantasy VI was, when that game first came out, I got it, and I don't remember sleeping that night. That game was ridiculous, just in terms of everything, the story, the level of involvement, the characters were awesome. Just everything was stepped up, Just the intricacy of the game was just ridiculous.
In a lot of ways, Final Fantasy VIII was the non-RPG player's RPG, which really horked a lot of people.
It was a little bit more story-driven than the other Final Fantasies. It was a very thematic type Final Fantasy game.
It was a pretty good game. It had a wonderful romantic story going for it as well. But it was the game that I think most Final Fantasy hardcore people would say was the low point.
Now we have a battle on our hands. According to you guys, the best Final Fantasy games of all time are Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy X. But which one has the magic to claim the #1 spot? Does 10 have enough Phoenix down to keep it conscious? Or will 7 make a clean sweep and capture the #1 spot? Get ready, because this ain't Blitzball. It's the Final Fantasy Filter Face-Off.
Final Fantasy VII was what laid the groundwork for the rest of the Final Fantasies after that.
The story was really well done, and the characters all had these reasons for interacting with each other.
I think Final Fantasy VII would take the top spot mainly because Final Fantasy X was really cool, of course, but at the same time, it was still basically an evolution from previous games of the series. 7, on the other hand, was a revolution because it introduced a wealth of brand new features to the game. 10 was the first game on the PS2. It sort of set the standard for what Final Fantasy is going to be for pretty much the near future. Most of the scenes were now done in real time, and everything looked a lot better, and also really concreted Square's role in the industry as graphics pioneers.
I think that's how it's going to go in the future. Just, you know, it's just like a whole new kind of involvement and a whole new type of entertainment.
Historically, you'd probably want to give it to 7, but just based on graphics alone, you'd have to go with 10.
So, which game did you choose? The polls are closed, your votes were counted, and your choice for the best Final Fantasy game of all time is Final Fantasy VII. All hail 7. But could someone please explain that ending to me? Well, that wraps up this episode of Filter. Remember, the opinions expressed on this show are yours, not mine. So make your vote count on future episodes by logging onto the Filter show page at g4tv.com/filter. Until then, I'm Yuna. Host Diane Mizoda will be back for the next show, but I'm keeping the outfit. See you next time.